I mean, Rappers Light was big for us, but it wasn't that big. There was a lot of bigger records that was big, but it just caught the mainstream because it was so
it was really big
commercial.
for white people.
Yeah, it was so commercially oriented.
Globally, I mean, forget just white. I mean, it was really, Africa, India, you name it, everywhere. It was one of those records that just, even in Europe, you go to West Africa, everywhere. I mean, it's a long story, but the whole idea had been set. I think it was a collision between reggae and disco. You got to remember, this is the same time that was going on where they were burning records. They had a big thing in Chicago where they had an anti-disco.
Yeah,
they had an anti-disco rally. And they just they told everybody who was coming to the show to bring a disco record that they could then throw in the middle of the arena and like either stomp on or burn.
Right.
So that was going on at the same time. So you had a reaction against disco.
They used to have breaks in records. They don't have it no more, where it's just drums and bass or just drums.
Well, now the whole song is the break.
Now the whole song is the break.
It's turned the whole thing
inside
inside out.
Turn. And then as DJs, we used to search for those because we never liked the whole songs of a lot of songs. So we just searched for the breaks, which was the funky parts. So Kool Herc sort of invented that because from the Jamaican side, the dub side. And with Good Times, that bass line and drums was so hot. Every rapper wanted to rap on it. I mean, they was Flash and them did super rapping just before that.
Yeah, super rapping. Yeah,
they do same song, same track, same music, but Sylvia Robinson had a stronghold on radio because of her name. She was artist from Pillow Talk and all that.
No, that's a really intense take on it. I mean, just from the politics of how music would happen.
Basically, that's how they took off.
Who got the platform to get the amplification. Because if you had heard super rapping a couple days earlier, it was a similar thing.
Very similar.
But that's what was going with the Jamaican thing too.
We ended up with Rapper's Delight.
It's almost like just whoever got there first.
And that became we played it, everybody played it, but that became that was like the soft record. Super rapping was the real one. That was Flash. Flash and them was considered real rappers, not the Sugarhill Gang.
Like the way people view Will Smith or something?
No, not really. No. Well, people might do it now, but we saw Real Smith as a real rapper, but he just did a different style.
It'd be more like a Puff Daddy versus Jay-Z or something. Like one was harder or more organic. Yeah. But the funny thing is, by the way, I was 7. I was really, I turned, if it's 79, I would be turning 8. I'm always a year behind, but for me back then it was like just a kid music, like
it was a kid thing.
Like we heard it and it would seem very innocent, and like if you're very young,
it was pretty innocent.
It was.
You have to think that if mainstream's first exposure to rap was more gangsta stuff, some of the more even some of the more political things that Public Enemy did, that it wouldn't have gained mainstream acceptance.
As a DJ, from DJing from a bar mitzvah to a park jam, we did all those kind of joints. That record was so popular with the audience, we had to have that. But as real true rappers, real true hip hop fans, they was considered. You're not real.
The beautiful thing about it is that it really, I think, broke down a lot of the segregation that had been going on in radio, but it comes from the underground mixtape culture. That's my whole thing. It was like mixtapes, and a lot of people just heard it as a word of mouth, and they heard it on the radio. But back then, you got to remember, cassette culture was still going. Like they had to record it, then pass it around, and I think that's what's beautiful about it, because it really brought the dub versus disco collision. It was like mashup. It's really basically a mashup. Nowadays, what we do is we'd edit. I have software on my cell phone even for editing tracks. It just take one section that you like, just cut it out, and then loop it, and that's the track.
Thank you so much for coming.
Pleasure.
In. It's a
all right.
to meet you.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Pleasure. It was great.